She thought she saved a stranger, but the woman she saved was the mafia boss's mother, and she had claimed her as daughter-in-law on the spot. Most people in the city whispered the same thing. Don't ever cross paths with Madame Yun-Su. The mother of Korea's most feared mafia boss wasn't just wealthy, she was a legend. Fierce, sharp-tongued, loyal to death. If you upset her, you upset the entire syndicate under her son. But on one dangerous afternoon, Madame Yun-Su crossed paths with someone nobody expected. A waitress in a faded apron, curly hair tied with a rubber band, carrying a tray of leftover pies. And that's the girl who saved her life. The city traffic was clogged as usual. Honking, heat, dust. Madame Yun-Su's black sedan sat at the signal, windows down. She was returning from the memorial temple where she visited her late husband every month. Her driver, Mr. Kang, stepped out to check the road. For a split second, she was alone, and that's when it happened. A truck barreled down the slope, brakes screeching, horn blaring. Everyone screamed. But Madame Yun-Su didn't look up in time. The truck was heading straight at her open door. And then, a blur, a voice, a hand pulling her violently out of the car. They both crashed onto the curb. Pain exploded across her hip. A tray clattered across the pavement, pies rolling everywhere. Madame Yun-Su gasped, shaking. What? Naomi Brooks, 23, diner waitress, hair frizzy from the heat, breathed out shakily. Ma'am, you okay? Her apron was ripped. Her elbow was bleeding. Her heart was pounding so hard it hurt. But she had saved her. The truck smashed into the vacant sedan. Metal folded. Glass flew like glitter. People screamed. Madame Yun-Su's eyes widened. That impact would have killed her instantly. You? Her voice trembled. You pulled me out? Naomi nodded, panting. I saw it coming. You didn't move. I just reacted. No fear, no hesitation, no calculating how dangerous this might be. Just instinct and heart. Madame Yun-Su stared at her savior, her chest tight with shock. This girl, this stranger, this waitress, had risked her own life to save an old woman she didn't even know. Sirens echoed, men in black suits rushed, phones exploded with orders, and behind all the chaos, a black motorcycle screeched to a stop. The man who got off it made half the street go silent. Han Ji-hyun. The Korean Mafia prince, Madame Yun-Su's only son, tall, sharp jawline, cold eyes, the type of man people fear even when he's calm. He rushed to his mother, panic slicing through his face. Iyama? He grabbed her shoulders. Are you hurt? What happened? She pointed at Naomi. She saved me. He turned. And for a moment, just a moment, his cold world paused. Naomi stood there holding her bruised arm, curls messy, apron dusty, pie stains on her shirt, a random diner waitress who had just stepped into a war world by accident. You? He asked quietly. She blinked. Me? Yeah. His eyes dropped to her bleeding elbow. His jaw clenched. You're injured. I'm fine. You're bleeding. It's just a scratch. People were watching, whispering. The Mafia prince speaking softly to a waitress? Unbelievable. But Ji-hyun didn't care. He took Naomi's wrist gently, as if she were made of something precious, and examined the wound. Get her cleaned up, he ordered one of his men. Naomi pulled her hand back. No, I'm fine, really. I need to go back to work. Work? He blinked at her like she'd said she needed to go climb the moon. You just saved my mother's life. You're not going back to that diner. Naomi tried to laugh. Sir, someone's got to serve tables. Madame Yun-Su let out a breathy, emotional laugh of disbelief. Ji-hyun, she whispered to her son. She reminds me of someone. He frowned. Who? His mother didn't answer. She was staring at Naomi with a softness nobody had seen in years. Emergency teams were clearing the road. Mafia men were guarding the scene. Reporters were gathering like vultures. But Madame Yun-Su wasn't focused on any of that. She was focused on Naomi, on her scraped elbows, her trembling hands, her kind, terrified eyes. Child, she said softly, what is your name? Naomi. Naomi Brooks. Are you always this reckless? Naomi flushed. I just didn't want you to get hurt. That truck was coming too fast. Madame Yun-Su nodded slowly. So you threw yourself toward danger for a stranger? She wasn't a stranger, Naomi said gently. Just someone's mother. Ji-hyun inhaled sharply. Something tugged in him, something even he didn't understand yet. Madame Yoon-soo placed a hand on Naomi's cheek. My son is lucky, she murmured. Very lucky. Lucky? Naomi frowned. Why? And then, right there on a broken street, with smoke rising from the crushed sedan and half the city watching, Madame Yoon-soo spoke the words that changed everything. Because from today, you are my daughter-in-law. The crowd gasped. Phones dropped. Ji-hyun choked on air. Iyama! Naomi's soul left her body. What? Madame Yoon-soo squeezed Naomi's hands. You saved my life. That makes you family. Fate chose you. I accept you. Ji-hyun stared at his mother, stunned beyond belief. You can't just... Quiet, she snapped. This is the girl. I feel it. I know it. Don't argue with me. But I said don't argue. Everyone stood frozen while Madame Yoon-soo nodded proudly like she'd solved world hunger. Naomi's voice trembled. Ma'am, I didn't save you to get married. I saved you because it was the right thing. Madame Yoon-soo touched her cheek again. Child, you did more for me today than people who call me family. Her eyes softened, truly softened, in a way her son had never seen. I thought my life was ending today, she whispered. But perhaps it was just beginning. Ji-hyun dragged his mother aside. Yama, you can't force someone. I'm not forcing, she hissed. I'm declaring. There's a difference. She barely knows us. I know enough, Madame Yoon-soo snapped. I saw the way you looked at her. I didn't look at Ji-hyun, she said slowly. Don't lie to your mother. He shut his mouth, because she was right. When he first saw Naomi, something had flickered in him. A crack, a thaw, something he didn't want to admit, something he didn't know how to handle. But his mother, she saw everything, every unspoken thing. She is the girl, Madame Yoon-soo whispered. The one who brings warmth back into this cursed bloodline. Ji-hyun's chest tightened. He didn't believe in fate, but the way Naomi had looked at him, fearless, confused, soft-hearted, that did something to him he didn't have words for yet. Naomi tried to slip away quietly, but Madame Yoon-soo grabbed her hand. You're coming with us. Ma'am, I really have to go back to the diner. No, you are family now. We're not. Madame Yoon-soo smiled. Not yet. Naomi nearly fainted. Ji-hyun pinched the bridge of his nose. Iyama, she's scared. Then comfort her. Ji-hyun blinked. He wasn't used to comforting anyone. But he walked to Naomi, his voice lowered, softer, gentler than he'd ever spoken to anyone outside family. You don't have to come with us, he said. My mother acts fast. Naomi let out a nervous laugh. That's one way to put it. But, he added quietly, I'd like to thank you properly. At least allow us to take care of your injury. She hesitated. His eyes were warm. Not cold mafia. Not intimidating. Just human. And for some reason, she trusted that look. Naomi nodded. Okay, but only for the injury. Madame Yoon-soo smirked. We'll see. Ji-hyun groaned internally. Fate had arrived wearing a diner apron, and the mafia world had no idea what storm was about to hit it. Naomi had never been in a car this expensive. The leather still smelled new. The air was cool. The windows dimmed the city into something distant and unreal. She clutched the little first aid kit they'd shoved into her hands and stared at the skyline as it rolled by. What am I doing? She whispered under her breath. Ji-hyun sat beside her, suit jacket off now, sleeves rolled up, veins visible on his forearms. He looked less like a crime prince and more like a tired man in his early 30s who had forgotten how to relax. Madame Yoon-soo sat in front, refusing to let anyone else take the passenger seat. She kept turning around to check on Naomi like an overexcited aunt. You're pale, she said. Are you hurt anywhere else? Back, neck, head? I'm okay, ma'am, Naomi replied. Just a scrape. Iyama, Ji-hyun sighed. You're more injured than she is and you're interrogating her. Because she matters, Madame Yoon-soo shot back. You can handle pain. She shouldn't have to. She said it like it was a fact, like Naomi already belonged to her. Naomi hugged the kit tighter. Really? I'm fine, she repeated. I'll just patch this up and you will eat, Madame Yoon-soo cut in. At our house. Naomi jolted. House? Ji-hyun met her eyes. You don't have to stay long. Just until you're comfortable. Comfortable. She didn't even know what that meant anymore. The car turned off the main road and climbed a long hill lined with tall hedges and stone walls. At the top, iron gates opened with a quiet mechanical hum, revealing a sprawling estate. Not a house, not a mansion, a world. Traditional Korean tiles blended with modern glass. Lanterns hung beneath wooden beams. A courtyard opened around a central tree older than any building on the block. Men in suits moved quietly near the entrance, bowing as the car rolled in. Naomi's throat went dry. "This is where you live?" she asked. "Yes," Madame Yunsu replied proudly. "You will get used to it." Ji-hyun coughed. "Yama." She ignored him. The moment Naomi stepped out of the car, the air changed. Men paused. Their eyes flicked to her, curious, cautious, a little confused. She didn't fit here in her scuffed sneakers, ripped apron, and scraped elbow. Good. She hadn't come to fit. She'd come to leave as soon as she could politely escape. "Don't stare," Ji-hyun said calmly to his men. "She's a guest." The way he said guest sounded heavier, like it meant more. The men bowed their heads and turned away. "You command them like that?" Naomi whispered. "They work for me," he said simply. "And who do you work for?" He paused. For the first time, the answer felt complicated. "Family," he replied eventually. She held his gaze for a second longer than she should have. Then a woman in her 50s, hair tied neatly, approached and bowed. "Madam, young master, welcome back." "Mrs. Park," Madame Yunsu smiled. "This is Naomi. She saved my life. Treat her as if she's blood. Better than blood." Naomi nearly dropped the first aid kit. Mrs. Park's eyes widened a fraction, then softened. "Of course," she said. "Come inside, Miss Naomi." "Just Naomi," she replied weakly. Inside, everything had the quiet polish of money that had been there a long time. Family portraits, vases, carved wood. The kind of home built on generations and guarded by secrets. They led her to a small sitting room overlooking the courtyard. Sliding doors, low table, cushions. It should have been intimidating. It wasn't. Because someone had left a half-finished embroidery hoop on the side table, a blanket folded imperfectly on the chair, and an open book face down on the cushion. This space was lived in. "Sit," Madame Yunsu said, easing herself down with a wince. "Ji-hyun, the kit." He reached for Naomi's elbow gently, turning her arm toward the light. "This might sting," he murmured. Her breath caught. "Honestly, I've burned myself on fryer oil worse than this." He gave the smallest smile. Then he cleaned the wound with precise, gentle movements. Hands that had probably broken bones now tending to a scraped elbow, like it was the most delicate thing in the room. Madame Yunsu watched them, her son who rarely let anyone close. This girl who walked into death for a stranger. Her mind was already made up. "Where is your family?" "Naomi?" she asked. Naomi glanced up, a little startled by the softness in her tone. "My mom works double shifts," she said. "My little brother, Darius, he's trying to get his life together. We don't have a lot, but we have each other." "And your father?" "Gone," she said simply. "Long time ago." Madame Yunsu's eyes flickered with understanding. "My husband is gone too," she said quietly. "Men leave, through death or choice. But we women stay and hold what's left." Naomi looked at her differently then. Not as just the fearsome Mafia queen, but as a woman who had lost and kept walking anyway. After bandaging her elbow, Mrs. Park brought out food so quickly Naomi wondered if they'd had a feast on standby. Kimchi, japchae, grilled fish, rice, steaming soup, little plates of side dishes that were almost too pretty to touch. Naomi's eyes widened. "I can't eat all this," she protested. "You won't," Madame Yunsu said. "We will." Ji-hyun sat opposite her. This time there was no chaos, no accident, no crowd. Just a low table and the awkward silence of two people who shared a disaster and nothing else. "Try this," Madame Yunsu urged, placing some food on Naomi's plate. "You need strength. You saved not just me today, but my son's future." Naomi blinked. "His future?" "If I had died," she said bluntly, "my enemies would smell weakness. They would come for him. You prevented that." Naomi's stomach twisted. She hadn't thought about it like that. "I just saw a truck," she said quietly. "I moved. Anyone would have." "No," Ji-hyun spoke for the first time in a while. "Most people freeze, or scream, or film. Their eyes locked across the table. She looked away first. Then, "I'm glad I didn't freeze," she said. He nodded once. "So am I." The way he said it, simple, sincere, warmed her more than the food. After they ate, Madame Yun-Su insisted on walking Naomi to the front hall. "You will come back," she said. Not a question, a statement. "I need to properly thank your mother and brother, too." "That's not necessary." "It is." Her voice softened. "I want to see the people who raised the woman who saved my life." Naomi's chest tightened. It had been a long time since anyone spoke about her family with that kind of respect. "Okay," she said quietly. "We'll come." "Good." Madame Yun-Su smiled in a way that made her look 10 years younger. "Then we can begin planning the wedding." Naomi nearly choked. "Wedding!" Ji-hyun, who'd just walked up behind them, almost dropped his keys. "Iyama." Madame Yun-Su waved a hand. "I'm old," she said. "I don't have time to waste. I know what I saw. You two have threads tied already." Naomi held up both hands. "Ma'am, your son and we literally just met. And he has never looked at anyone the way he looked at you when you stood in the road," she said. "Don't argue with my instincts. They are never wrong." Ji-hyun muttered something in Korean that sounded suspiciously like a curse. Naomi's heart was beating too fast, but under the embarrassment, she couldn't lie. There was something between them. She just didn't know what to call it yet. Back at the diner, the fluorescent lights buzzed like nothing had changed. Her manager glared as she rushed in. "You took forever. You okay?" "Long story," she sighed. "Very long story." She tied her apron back on, grabbed her order pad, and snapped into rhythm. But her mind was far from the greasy grills and chipped mugs. It was in a quiet room with a low table and a woman who'd called her daughter. It was in the way a Mafia boss had held her arm like it might break. It was in the moment she'd heard him almost panic when he thought she was hurt. Darius was waiting for her after close, leaning against the lamppost outside. "You good?" he asked, looking her up and down. "Physically?" "Yeah," she said. "Mentally?" "We'll see." He squinted. "You look like someone who just got proposed to and doesn't know it yet." She froze. "Why would you say that?" "Because there's a guy behind you who looks like he'd burn the city if you crossed the street without looking." She turned. Across the road, leaning against a black car, was Ji-hyun. He wasn't in a suit now, just dark jeans, a plain shirt, and a stare that saw straight through excuses. He crossed the street. "Naomi," he said with a small nod. Then he looked at Darius. "You must be her brother." Darius puffed his chest a little. "Yeah, who's asking?" "Han Ji-hyun." Darius's bravado shrank just a bit. "The Han? Like, the Han?" Naomi groaned. "Can we not do this right now?" Ji-hyun almost smiled. "I came to make sure you got home safe, Ima," he said. "The men involved in the truck, they might not like what happened today." Naomi's stomach sank. "You mean they could come after you, or your mom?" "Or you," he said quietly. Darius stepped in front of her. "Absolutely not," he said. "Nobody's touching her." Ji-hyun's gaze flicked between them. "Good," he said. "Then you understand why it might be safer if you stayed at our estate for a while, Naomi?" Her eyes widened. "What?" "It's temporary," he said. "Until I deal with whoever tried to stage that accident." She swallowed. He was right. She hated that he was right. But moving into a Mafia house wasn't exactly on her life plan between double shifts and overdue rent. "I can't just leave everything," she said. "My job? I'll compensate your manager," he replied. "My mom, she can visit you," he said. "Or I'll send a car for her." "My life, Ji-hyun," she said, voice shaking. "I can't just pack it into a bag and move into your world." He stepped closer. Not too close, but close enough that she could see the tired lines under his eyes. "You already stepped into my world when you pulled my mother out of that car," he said. "I'm just asking you to let me make sure you survive it." That hit harder than anything else. She exhaled slowly. "Darius?" she asked. He looked at her, then at Ji-hyun, then at his sister again. "You trust him?" Darius asked quietly. She thought about the alley, the truck, the way he'd bandaged her elbow, the way his mother had looked at her like she'd been waiting her whole life to meet her. "I don't know him," she said honestly, "but I don't feel unsafe around him." That was enough for Darius. "Fine," he said, "but if anything happens to her, I'm coming for you." Ji-hyun's expression flickered with the ghost of amusement. I believe you, he said. 2 days later, Naomi stood in front of the Han estate with a single duffel bag and a racing heart. She hadn't brought much. A few clothes, her worn-out hoodie, a small framed picture of her mom, and Darius crammed into a photo booth, laughing with their eyes squeezed shut. She felt like an imposter. This place was marble floors and ancient trees and quiet money. She was chipped nail polish and discount sneakers. Mrs. Park greeted her at the door like she'd been expecting her all her life. Welcome home, Naomi. Home. The words stabbed and soothed at the same time. Inside, Madame Yun-Su was waiting in the sitting room, dressed in a soft hanbok this time, hair down for once, looking almost gentle. You came, she said, eyes shining. I said I would. And you kept your word, she nodded approvingly. Good, I like that. Naomi glanced around nervously. I'm only staying until it's safe, she said. I don't want to be a burden. You are not a burden, Madame Yun-Su said firmly. You are an answer. Answer to what? She whispered. To a prayer I stopped saying a long time ago. Before Naomi could respond, Ji-hyun appeared in the doorway. He didn't look like a mafia boss right now, just a man who had been pacing and finally found relief. You're here, he said. You sound surprised. I'm grateful, he admitted. Their eyes met. Something quiet passed between them, unfinished, unnamed, but undeniably there. That night, Naomi lay in a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment. Soft bed, clean sheets, a view of the courtyard tree. She couldn't sleep. Outside, she could hear faint footsteps of guards. Somewhere, a phone buzzed with urgent whispers. This house was calm, but the world it belonged to was not. She padded out onto the balcony for air. Below, by the tree, a lone figure stood. Ji-hyun. He was staring up at the sky, hands in pockets, shoulders heavy. She watched him for a moment. Then before she could overthink it, she whispered, Ji-hyun? He looked up. She expected him to tell her to go back inside. Instead, he said, Can't sleep? New pillow? She shrugged. Feels like it's judging me. He huffed a soft laugh. Come down, he said. The tree doesn't judge. So she did. And under that old tree in the center of the Han estate, with guards pretending not to watch and stars barely peeking through city haze, a mafia boss and a diner waitress sat side by side. Not as savior and saved, not as boss and outsider, not even as future anything, just as two people whose lives had collided in a way neither of them fully understood yet. How long do you think I'll have to stay here? She asked. Until I'm sure no one will use you to hurt me, he said. She tilted her head. People would really come after me just to get to you? Yes, she thought about that. Then you better stay alive, she said. He looked at her. I intend to, he replied softly, now more than ever. Naomi's heart made a dangerous decision. It started to fall. She didn't know what this house would demand of her, what this family would turn her into, what dangers waited in the dark corners of Ji-hyun's world. But she knew one thing. She had already been claimed as a daughter-in-law in words. Now under this tree, fate had started to write the rest. For 3 days, the Han estate pulsed with a tension Naomi couldn't name. Guards doubled at every entrance. Phones buzzed in every hallway. Ji-hyun disappeared into late-night meetings. Madame Yun-Su kept a rosary of jade beads wrapped around her fingers, a habit she only had when something was very, very wrong. Naomi felt it all without anyone telling her a thing. Something had shifted in their world, and she was at the center. It happened at dawn. Naomi walked downstairs for water, bleary-eyed, hair a mess, wearing a borrowed sweatshirt that nearly swallowed her whole. She wasn't expecting to find a man in a black suit standing in the living room. He wasn't a guard she recognized. His eyes flicked to her, cold, sharp, assessing. You must be the girl, he said slowly. The girl. The reason the young master is making unusual decisions. Naomi's grip on her cup tightened. He smirked. You should be careful. Not everyone in this house thinks your presence is a blessing. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the room like a knife. Step away from her. Ji-hyun. He stood at the top of the steps, jaw clenched, eyes like winter steel. The suited man bowed stiffly. Young master, I was simply introducing myself. No, you were provoking her, Ji-hyun said coldly. Try that again, and you won't be allowed inside these walls. The man's eyes flickered. Then he bowed again and walked out the door. Naomi exhaled shakily. Who was that? Someone who forgets his place, Ji-hyun muttered. He won't speak to you again. She watched him descend the stairs, noticing the tension in every step. The exhaustion. The weight. You barely slept, she whispered. I'm working on something. What's something? He hesitated. Then he said the last thing she expected. The accident wasn't an accident. Her stomach dropped. What? The truck was sabotage, he said, and someone tipped them off about my mother's schedule. Naomi's pulse hammered. You mean someone wanted to kill her? Yes. To get to you. Yes, he repeated quietly. She choked on air. And because I pulled her out, now they know my face. He looked at her, eyes softening in a way that broke her in half. That's why you're here, Naomi. I need to protect you. That afternoon, Naomi found Madame Yoon-soo in the courtyard, ripping petals off flowers with unnerving calm. The older woman didn't look at her when she spoke. They wanted me dead, she said, and when they failed, they looked for another weakness. She turned, eyes blazing. You! Naomi swallowed. I didn't ask to be part of this, she whispered. You're not just anything, Madame Yoon-soo snapped. You saved me. That made you family. And family is both shield and target. Naomi's chest tightened. I didn't know. How could you? The old woman said more softly. You were living your life, serving tables, caring for your brother. You didn't ask for this world. Naomi nodded, throat tight. But fate doesn't ask, Madame Yoon-soo continued. It chooses, and it chose you. Naomi blinked hard. Why me? She whispered. Madame Yoon-soo touched her cheek with a gentleness Naomi hadn't expected from someone so fierce. Because my son looks at you the way a man looks at his first sunrise after a decade of storms. Naomi froze. I didn't come here to become anything, she whispered. I didn't come to ruin his life. You saved his life too, Madame Yoon-soo cut in. More than you know. Naomi shook her head. I don't belong here, she whispered. This world, it terrifies me. Madame Yoon-soo didn't deny it. It should. Then she held Naomi's hands. But my son's world is changing because of you. And I've waited many years to see that change. Naomi's voice trembled. I'm not strong enough for this. Oh, child, Yoon-soo whispered. Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just choosing to stay when everything in you wants to run. Her grip tightened. And you stayed. Naomi didn't know what broke her more. The fear or the way this woman made her feel like she mattered. It happened when the sun dipped. Naomi stepped into the courtyard to water a pot of herbs someone had left unattended. Mrs. Park had said fresh mint made Ji-hyun smile. Naomi didn't know why she cared, but she did. As she bent to water the plant, she heard a hiss. Click. Something metallic hitting stone. Naomi froze. A little black device rolled to a stop inches from her hand. Not a grenade. Not a bomb. A tracker. Someone had thrown a tracker into the estate. But at that moment, before she could scream for help, a gloved hand grabbed her shoulder. She gasped, and immediately a figure yanked her backward. A shadow. Tall. Masked. Moving fast. His arm locked around her waist. Before he could drag her farther, a gunshot cracked the air. Bang! The masked man jerked, stumbled, then vanished into the hedge, dropping the tracker. Naomi fell to her knees, heart in her throat. Ji-hyun sprinted from the other side of the courtyard. Gun raised, eyes on fire. Naomi! He slid beside her, hands flying to her shoulders. Did he touch you? Did he hurt you? Naomi, look at me. I think... He tried to grab me. She gasped, shaking uncontrollably. Ji-hyun's face hardened into something she had only seen in nightmares. Pure, controlled rage. Rage at himself, rage at the world, rage at whoever dared come near her. He pulled her into his chest without hesitation. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't careful. It was instinct, raw, desperate. You're safe, he murmured over and over. I've got you. I'm here. She clung to him, fingers gripping his shirt, breath shaking violently. Guards surrounded them. Madame Yoon-soo rushed out, eyes wide. What happened? What? Ji-hyun spoke through clenched teeth. Someone tried to take her. The mother's expression changed like a storm overtaking a sky. Over my dead body. She crouched beside Naomi, cupping her face. Child, look at me. Naomi did. Yunsu's voice softened, dangerously. They thought they could use you against us. They thought you were weak. Her eyes burned like fire. They were wrong. Naomi trembled harder. Why won't they leave me alone, she whispered. Ji-hyun's arms tightened around her. Because you're important to me, he said before he could stop himself. Silence exploded between them. Naomi's breath hitched. Madame Yunsu's eyebrows rose, but she smiled fiercely. There it is, she murmured. Finally. Ji-hyun helped Naomi to her feet, guiding her inside with a hand on her back. I'm taking you somewhere safer, he said. This house isn't safe, she whispered weakly. It is, he said. But you're not sleeping alone tonight. She stumbled. What? I'll stay outside your door, he said quickly. I won't enter. I'll just make sure nothing gets within 10 feet of you. But that's necessary, he said. His tone wasn't the cold Mafia command she'd heard before. It was fear. Real fear. Fear of losing her. Madame Yunsu placed a hand on her son's arm. Ji-hyun, she said gently, you can't protect her like this forever. I will protect her any way I must. You can't fight a whole generation of enemies alone, he glared. Watch me. Naomi stepped between them. Her voice was soft, but it held something new, courage born from necessity. Ji-hyun, she whispered, you can't destroy your life because I got pulled into it. You didn't get pulled into it, he said sharply. You were targeted because of me. And I'm still here, she replied quietly. He froze. I'm still here, she repeated. And I'm not running away. Ji-hyun's jaw clenched, throat tightening. He'd heard gunshots without blinking. He'd faced rivals without flinching. He'd lost men, fought wars, buried friends. But this? A girl from a diner looking him in the eye and saying she wouldn't leave him? It made him feel something he didn't have a name for. He reached for her hand, not forcefully, not possessively, just gently, as if she were something he'd just realized he was allowed to want. Naomi let him hold it. Madame Yunsu watched them with a satisfaction so deep it softened every wrinkle on her face. I knew it, she whispered. I knew fate brought her. Later that night, after the guards doubled and the doors were bolted, Ji-hyun stood outside Naomi's room, leaning against the wall. He knew she couldn't hear him through the door. But he spoke anyway. You're not alone, he whispered. Inside, Naomi sat on the edge of the bed, hand pressed against her racing heart. She didn't know where this path was going, but she knew this. She was no longer the girl who served coffee and pie to strangers. She was now the girl a Mafia family would kill to protect. The girl someone tried to abduct. The girl fate had chosen for something bigger. The girl who was becoming, slowly, quietly, part of the life of a man who carried the whole city on his shoulders. And tonight, she realized something she had been too scared to admit. She didn't want to disappear from his world. She wanted to stay, even if it terrified her. The Han estate didn't sleep for the next 48 hours. Calls flew across time zones. Deals were threatened. Promises were broken. And through it all, one truth settled over the house like storm clouds. Whoever went after Naomi had declared war, not just on the Hans, on whatever softer future they were trying to build. Ji-hyun sat at the long conference table in the underground room. No windows, just cold lights and colder faces. The same man who'd called Naomi the girl now stood on the opposite side, hands bound behind his back, lip bleeding where somebody had hit him. You went too far, Ji-hyun said, voice flat. The man scoffed. She's just some waitress. No, Ji-hyun replied. She is my mother's savior, and under this roof, that makes her untouchable. Another scoff. You've gone soft, the man sneered. Over some girl from a diner? The whole city's watching, Ji-hyun. You're supposed to be untouchable. But now everybody knows. One nobody can make you bleed. Ji-hyun's expression didn't change. Everybody already knew I bleed, he said. They just thought they could use it. That's their mistake. The man leaned forward. You care about her, he said. They'll use that, again and again, until someone gets to her first. Ji-hyun's jaw tightened. I'm aware, he said. Then let me fix it, the man said. Let me clean the mess. One bullet, one night, problem solved. No waitress, no weakness. He said it casual, like he was talking about taking out the trash. The room went dead silent. Ji-hyun didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Repeat that, he said quietly. I want you to hear yourself. The man swallowed. He'd gone too far. Ji-hyun stood. You think caring makes me weak, he said. You think loyalty is a liability. You think the only way to survive is to cut away anything that looks like light. He stepped closer, eyes calm, too calm. But here's something you never understood, he continued. Men who fear loss are dangerous. Men who never had anything to lose, they're reckless. Men like me, who finally found one thing they refused to lose, he smiled cold and lethal. They're the most terrifying of all. He nodded to his men. Get him out of here. He doesn't work for us anymore. The man paled. You're exiling me. That's the merciful version, Ji-hyun said. Take it and go before my mother hears what you suggested. She won't be as kind. As the door slammed behind the disgraced subordinate, one of the lieutenants cleared his throat. Young master, he ventured carefully. You know the others will talk. Let them talk, Ji-hyun replied. Let them know what happens when someone lays a hand on what's mine. Naomi hadn't meant to listen. She'd only come downstairs to find Mrs. Park and ask for tea, but voices carried down the hall from the underground stairwell. They'll keep coming for her if they think she's just a waitress. He said she's what's mine. Her heart stuttered. She didn't hear every word, but she heard enough. Enough to know she wasn't a footnote in his world anymore. Enough to know this war wasn't about territory alone. It was about her. Footsteps approached. A door opened down below. Naomi stumbled back, pressing herself against the wall as Ji-hyun emerged from the stairwell. Tie loosened, sleeves rolled, expression carved from stone. He almost passed her. Then he stopped. You were listening? He said. It wasn't a question. She swallowed. Not on purpose, she said. Your walls aren't exactly soundproof. He exhaled slowly. I didn't want you to hear it like that. Hear what? She whispered. That someone suggested killing me? The word tasted wrong in her mouth. His eyes darkened. Yes, he said, and that I made it very clear what happens to anyone who tries. She studied him. You called me what's mine, she said softly. Silence stretched between them. He could have denied it, could have brushed it off as strategy, could have hidden behind the role he played for everyone else. He didn't. Yes, he said. Her stomach flipped. Am I? She whispered. His jaw flexed once. Do you want to be? He asked quietly. There it was. No mafia, no mother, no enemies. Just a man asking a woman a question he never thought he'd ask. Trembling, she stepped closer. You terrify me, she admitted. I know, he said. You drag danger wherever you go. I know. You make my life more complicated every day. A faint, broken smile. I know, Naomi. She took a breath that felt like jumping off a cliff. And I think, she whispered, my heart chose you the second you bandaged my elbow and pretended it was nothing. Something in his face shattered. The careful control, the distance, the denial, all of it. Naomi, he murmured. Don't say my name like that, she said, voice shaking. Unless you mean it. He did. He meant every syllable. He closed the last inch between them. His fingers brushed her jaw, slow, as if giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he lowered his forehead to hers and let the words fall out. You're not my weakness, he whispered. You're the first thing in my life that makes me want to be better than the man I've been. Her eyes burned. That's not a small thing to say, she managed. It's the only way I know how to say it, he replied. She laughed through a tear. You're very bad at normal romance, you know. I wasn't trained for normal anything, he said. Then he kissed her. It wasn't the desperate clutch from the courtyard. It wasn't a stolen moment. It was a promise. Slow, intentional, unhurried, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything except truth. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Does this make things more dangerous? She asked. Definitely, he said. She swallowed. Then I guess we do it together. He smiled, slow and disbelieving, like no one had ever offered to walk beside him before. Together, he echoed. Of course, Madame Yun-Su didn't miss a thing. Later that evening, she summoned Naomi to the courtyard tree. Sit, she said, patting the bench. Naomi sat, fingers twitching. You had a choice, Madame Yun-Su began. You could have left after the accident, after the first scare, after the second, yet you stayed. Naomi nodded slowly. I thought about running, she admitted. A lot. And why didn't you? Naomi looked at her hands. Because you risked your life raising your son in this world, she said. Because he carries scars I don't even know how to name. Because I saw both of you standing against an entire city, and I realized I didn't want to be one more person who walked away from him. Madame Yunsu didn't speak. Naomi continued. I can't fight like your men. I can't negotiate like him. I don't know how to aim a gun or threaten a room. She lifted her gaze, eyes steady. But I know how to stand with somebody when the world is trying to pull them apart. I know how to stay. If I say I'm not leaving, I mean it. A slow, emotional smile touched the older woman's lips. Good, she whispered, because I don't need a soldier for my son. I need someone who will remind him he's allowed to be human. Naomi's throat tightened. I'm not perfect, she said. I'll panic. I'll question. I'll argue. Oh, I expect it, Yunsu said. Lord knows he needs someone who doesn't cower when he walks into a room. Silence settled, soft and thick. Then Madame Yunsu straightened her shoulders and spoke words that carried weight beyond this courtyard. Naomi Brooks, she said formally, on the day you pulled me from that car, I claimed you as my daughter-in-law in the heat of shock and instinct. Today, I claim you again, with full awareness. Naomi's breath caught. This life is not easy, the older woman went on. This family is not simple. But if you want it, if you want him, then I give you my blessing, not because you saved my life, because you've changed my son's. Tears spilled before Naomi could stop them. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you won't break his heart. I won't, she said immediately. Say you'll drag him out of darkness if he ever tries to sink back in. I will. Say you know this isn't a fairy tale. It's work. It's war. It's love in the middle of chaos. Naomi laughed through tears. I've never wanted a fairy tale, she said. I just want something real. Madame Yunsu's eyes shone. Then stand up. Naomi did. The older woman pulled a delicate bracelet from her wrist. Gold, simple, worn from years of touch. This was given to me by my mother-in-law, she said. She wanted me to pass it to the woman who would stand beside my son when I no longer could. With gentle fingers, she clasped it around Naomi's wrist. It fit like it had been waiting for her. There, she said. Now you're truly mine. Naomi wiped her cheeks, laughing breathlessly. I thought I was his, she said. You're both, Yunsu replied. That's how this works. You didn't just marry a man. You marry his people, his burdens, his ghosts, but you also inherit his strength. Naomi looked down at the bracelet. It wasn't diamonds. It wasn't flashy. It was something better. Belonging. Months later, the city still whispered about the failed assassination. Some said the Hans had gone soft. Others said they'd become more dangerous than ever. Nobody touched Naomi, not after what happened to the man who tried. Inside the estate gates, life shifted into a new rhythm. Naomi spent mornings studying Korean with Mrs. Park, afternoons helping Madame Yunsu in the garden, evenings waiting for Ji-hyun to come home from meetings less bloody than they used to be. He changed. Slowly. He didn't step away from power overnight. But he started passing responsibilities, closing unnecessary conflicts, drawing harder lines about what he would and wouldn't allow. Why? Naomi asked him one night as they sat beneath the courtyard tree. Because I used to think my legacy was fear, he said. Now I want it to be something else. What? He looked at her. Survival with dignity, he said. For the people under me. For my mother. For you. Her heart squeezed. You're building an exit, she realized, a way out. Maybe not for me, he said, but for whoever comes next. For our children, if we have them. They shouldn't inherit war. The word our echoed between them. He didn't take it back. She didn't want him to. Exactly 1 year after Naomi pulled Madame Yunsu from the car, the Han estate celebrated quietly. No fireworks, no public displays. Just a long table beneath the courtyard tree, 2 candles, warm food, 3 people who'd been stitched together by fate, accident, and choice. This is not traditional Thanksgiving, Naomi teased, spooning rice into her bowl. It is now, Yunsu declared. The day my daughter-in-law saved me. Naomi flushed. I'm not officially. You will be, the older woman cut her off. And if my son drags his feet, I will personally drag him to the altar. Ji-hyun shook his head. I was going to ask her, he muttered. In my own time. Yunsu pointed her chopsticks at him. Time's up. Naomi laughed, covering her face with her hands. Can you two not argue about my theoretical wedding in front of me? Why theoretical? Ji-hyun asked quietly. She peeked through her fingers. He was looking at her with the same open, terrifying softness that made it impossible to breathe properly. Naomi, he said, standing and moving to her side of the table. My mother claimed you before I knew what was happening. The city sees you as mine. The enemies fear you because you're protected. But I don't want your life to be defined by war or obligation. He took her hand, thumb brushing the bracelet on her wrist. I want you to choose me. Not my world, me. Her eyes filled again. You think I haven't already? She whispered. I want to hear it, he said. She stood too. In the alley, you saved my brother, she said. On that street, I saved your mother. In this house, we've been saving each other ever since. She took a breath. And I'm tired of pretending that's coincidence. I choose you, Ji-hyun, with your past, with your scars, with every unfinished piece of the man you are. His chest rose sharply. That sounded dangerously like a vow, he murmured. Maybe it is, she replied. He dropped to one knee. Madame Yunsu gasped so loudly it almost broke the moment, but then she covered her mouth, eyes overflowing. Naomi Brooks, he said, voice steady. Will you stop being our guest and become what my mother called you the day fate threw you into our lives? Will you marry me? Truly, not as a shield, not as a political move, just as the woman I love? The world blurred. Naomi could hear her own heart pounding in her ears. Only if you promise one thing, she whispered. Anything. Promise me that no matter how dark things get, you will never shut me out, she said. If I'm going to carry this life with you, I want all of it. His throat tightened. I promise, he said, on everything I have left. Then yes, she breathed. I'll marry you. Madame Yunsu started crying and clapping at the same time. Finally, she shouted. I told you, didn't I tell you? She's the one. I knew it the second she ruined my car and saved my life. Naomi laughed through tears. You're never letting me forget that, are you? Never, Yunsu grinned. It's the best accident that ever happened to me. Ji-hyun stood and pulled Naomi into his arms. The bracelet on her wrist glinted in the candlelight. The courtyard tree rustled softly in the evening breeze. Somewhere beyond the walls, the city kept roaring, uncaring. Inside, 3 people sat down to dinner. Not as Mafia royalty,